Thank you, Minister. I think everyone else is also coming up, but what a wonderful introduction. I'll put my bits down here. Firstly, I'm going to be really typical of a social media addict and take a photo of everyone in the audience, if that's okay. So could you all put your hands up and wave? Brilliant. Okay. Is this my clicker? Do I need to? Okay, so place meets energy, energy meets place. I'm going to speak for a few minutes and hopefully just open up what will be a really interesting session on cities and countries as energy brands. First of all, no branding expert would be a branding expert if they didn't have a bit more interaction, as Eric started it off earlier. So let's start with a very simple game. 3 words, 1 brand. Please, don't be shy. I've only got 10 minutes to talk. Information, accessible, innovative. Yes? American refreshment everywhere. Absolutely. Playful, small, drive. Mini. Okay, let's move from brands of products or services into place. And these are my 3 words. I'm sure some of you might have a different view on this. Loud, intense, brash. New York City. Relaxed, bicycles, canals. Absolutely. Alpine, sophisticated, somewhat expensive. Switzerland. And this one, I'm sure you'll all get. Remote, rugged, and geothermal. There we go. So they were my 3 words. You might have a very different set of words, but essentially, whether we're talking about products or services or places, every country, city, and place is a brand, either by default or design. Why would you go about branding a place? I mean, it's kind of no different to any other product or service out there, but there's lots of things to pull on. The minister touched on many of those. Whether it's about tapping into the economic value of a destination, whether it's actually about really empowering citizens and building a sense of pride in where they live, and particularly in some places, and one of the examples I'll touch on, quite often places can lack investment over time and fall into decline, so that's really important. But it's also a source of differentiation in what is a global market, incredibly competitive. We also want to think about shifting perceptions of what our countries and places and cities stand for. And so we were talking about the shift from, let's just say, black energy to green. Quite often we're seeing that in places. And of course, we want to be able to attract talent and investment. But the story of any brand, as we heard earlier, it's really important to be really clear about who you are, what your DNA is. And to be really single-minded and simple in the expression and articulation of that. Why? Because you are addressing many different audiences. We're not just talking to ministries and citizens, we're not just talking about exports, we're talking about tourists on the one hand, but also businesses that want to choose to come and work in our city, with our country, with any destination. So whether something as simple and single-minded as greatness, for the nation brand of Great Britain, speaks to heritage for tourists, it also needs to talk to businesses about what makes it great to come and work with us in the case of entrepreneurship. So just a few examples. But why does place matter for energy? Funnily enough, since this morning, and I'm sure we're going to hear it over the next 2 days, the two are very much interlinked. Actually, when we look at it, place is most definitely an inherent part of energy brands. Traditionally, we're talking about nationalized businesses, but whether it's instilled in the name itself, if it's about the place it comes from or the region it serves, even hearing today from Mary about green power, Green Mountain Power, so much of that is not just about how disruptive they're being and building a connection with their customers, it's also about tapping into the kind of ethics and values of that part of the world, of Vermont. But we are starting to see a quite different approach between places and energy and place. The two are very much interlinked. And there's 3 examples I want to share with you. Some of them Siegel+Gale have worked on, some of them we haven't. If you want to find out, you can come and ask me afterwards. But first of all, let's start firmly in the world of place. This is Hull. I'll be honest, I'm a classic Londoner. I don't travel north of Watford that often, unless I'm going to jump on a flight and come to Reykjavik. But I haven't been to this part of the world, but this is actually a part of the northeast of the UK, where traditionally it's been known for its ports, its shipping, its fishery industries, and since the Second World War has actually seen a great amount of decline and a lack of investment in this part of the UK. So for them, it was really important to actually turn things around, not just for its citizens, but also for its kind of economic growth. This is Hull in 2017, when it was awarded the UK City of Culture. They put the bid in back in 2013, and since then, when they won it, they have seen over £1 billion of investment coming into the region. Yes, it looks exciting. It's all about arts and culture. There's a whole calendar of events happening this year. But they're actually doing more than just talking about arts and culture. They're looking at attracting investment and businesses to create a place within a place, to actually define itself as a regional energy hub. And Greenport has been doing just that. It's part of a 10-year economic plan for Hull. And they've been attracting global businesses like Siemens to come in and invest in building one of the world's largest offshore wind farms. So really interesting to see how they've started with building a destination brand and actually moving it into kind of making that destination stand for more than just being a fun place to kind of interact with arts and culture. Let's head further east. And actually, this is a part of the world which is firmly ingrained in the world of oil, or in some cases, some might call it black energy. But Saudi Aramco is fundamental to the economy of Saudi Arabia. Oil is very much driving that. They're the largest producer of it in the world, but even they recognize that oil reserves are depleting, and they need to actually redefine their place, but also help diversify the economy of Saudi Arabia. So they did the reverse of Hull. They actually helped support build this, which is the King Abdulaziz Center of World Culture. It's somewhere in the heart of Saudi Arabia, the source of where oil began. But this center is actually about arts and culture and science and innovation, and it's there to help Saudi nationals actually realize there's more to what they can bring to their economy, but also, broadly speaking, it's not just about energy in that specific sense. It's shifting the perception that one has of that region. And the purpose of ITHRA, which is sort of like brand name for that center, is to energize the next knowledge economy. And that's really using the word of energy in the broadest sense, powering knowledge. It's not just about the actual kind of product that comes out, but it's more about the value and the power it can bring to the people. And lastly, because I don't have very long, this is a wonderful example, and much closer to home in terms of where we are. Dong, the Danish oil and natural gas, somewhat of a laughingstock for its name, typically associated with black energy. But actually, in recent years, it has really cleaned up its act. We talked this morning about how we're transitioning from old business models to new ones, and these guys have been doing just that. They have absolutely sold upstream businesses that reflected the black energy. They have been moving closely into converting power stations into sustainable biomass. They're providing 100% sustainable energy to Danish residents. And actually recognizing that Danish people's attitudes and expectations have changed. This is a very, green part of the world. People are cycling to work. So they should as a brand be reflecting that change. And so it was only last week, not even a week ago, that they became from Dong to Ørsted, really celebrating the future and demonstrating that their brand now isn't just about oil and gas anymore, but it's about a world that runs entirely on green energy. It's about striving for that purpose. And the name itself is wonderful because it is very Danish. It's inspired by the physicist that discovered electromagnetism, which is obviously how we're generating energy increasingly this day. But it speaks to the fact that Denmark is still a part of this company's DNA, but it's now reflecting it in a new way, in a positive way, in a kind of progressive way. So place isn't just about where you come from. It can also be about where you're heading. And actually, as energy brands, I think you have a great deal amount of influence and power to really shape, evolve, and amplify the places that you're part of for the better. And that's absolutely what we should be kind of striving for. And my last slide is really simply to say, do it with simplicity. You know, we talk a lot about trust, and Green Mountain Power is one example of how they've really built that. But when we see Eric's slide and demonstrating how there's a lack of trust in the industry, it's because we're not doing things in a simple way. So this is important, not just in the stories that you tell, but in the experiences that you deliver for your employees, for your customers, and also for the places that you're part of. Thank you.